What's up, everybody? D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing a chill discussion breakdown of the official Skull Island anime teaser. It's very late at night, there are people sleeping in this house, and the only reason I'm recording this video so late is because I wasn't feeling very well today, and so I slept the entire full day away, which doesn't totally help when I have to leave for a trip here very shortly. It's like one day away, so that doesn't really help me, but I needed to take some time to rest to get feeling better. And I did, and so I'm feeling better, but it does mean that I threw an entire day away. Alright, so on May 23rd, we got the first official reveal for the Skull Island anime. We saw the first poster for it, and we saw the first official teaser for it. In this video, I just want to do kind of an off-the-cuff discussion about it, because I am going to be out of town, so I don't really have time to dig into this stuff and analyze the way I normally do. This is unscripted. I'm just going to kind of dig through the trailer with you guys and see what we think. I don't think I've done one of these kind of live trailer breakdowns since probably King of the Monsters, so it's been a bit. The first thing that interests me is that this show is not what we thought it was. Originally, when the show was announced, and this has been reported for years now, we thought that the show was going to be a prequel to Kong Skull Island, and after watching the teaser, it very clearly is not a prequel to Kong Skull Island. It's definitely a sequel to Kong Skull Island. The original synopsis we got was the adventures of a shipwrecked crew that are trying to escape from the mysterious and dangerous island home to prehistoric monsters, including the Titan Kong. Originally, it was said that this show was set years before Kong Skull Island, and Skull Island is an animated series made by Legendary in the MonsterVerse, and it is canon. The updated description we got, which came out very recently, states, Netflix's Skull Island is a thrilling animated adventure following shipwrecked characters desperate to escape the most dangerous place on Earth. A mysterious island home to prehistoric monsters, including the greatest titan of them all, Kong. It does not stop there, with Legendary officially tweeting out, there are many titans, but there is only one king. Skull Island is coming June 22nd, only on Netflix. So that's our first official announcement of when the release date for this series will be. It'll be June 22nd, which gives us just a little under a month for the advertising campaign. As far as Netflix's series go, that's actually a pretty decent ad run, so if you're worried that the fact that they waited so long to announce anything is a sign that they don't have faith in the project, it's, I think, pretty rare for a Netflix project to have more than a month of advertising, and if it had only had one day of marketing or 1 week, that's when we'd know we'd be in trouble. So I think this is actually a pretty good sign that they're generally confident that this series will be alright. We did get our first official poster for the show, and I've got mixed thoughts on it. I don't know how I feel about the art style. I do appreciate the color palette here being overwhelmingly brown, although I think this is a little dull. Skull Island the movie was one of the most vibrant films I've ever seen, so to go with such a dull poster makes me a little nervous that the show is going to have a lack of a visual flair, but the trailer makes up for that, I think. I don't have too much to say here. Kong's design I'm not the biggest fan of. He looks very generic. This does not look like the King Kong of the MonsterVerse. This is much more like the King Kong of the 90s cartoons. This definitely is like a mix between Kong from Kong the Animated Series and Kong from, what is that movie, The Mighty Kong? I think that's the one. This looks like those two Kongs fused to me. I see that they've got a little griffin up in the corner, which is cool. That's a pretty neat super species to throw into this show. I like that. I miss the Skull Island font. I know that they're trying to have their own brand here, but I do miss seeing the actual Skull Island font. As far as our characters go, I'm not sure what to make of them, but I'm nervous. So they look to be younger in this poster than they do in the trailer. I'm hoping that they're going to lean more into the early adult side of things rather than the teenage kid side of things, as I've talked about at length on this channel before. I do like that we have one adult character here, though. That at least makes me pretty happy. I don't want the show being run by children. The thing that makes me nervous is this little beefy boy on the corner here, this big dog guy. What I don't want to see in this show is where they do the classic, like every cartoon feels the need to do it for some reason. I feel like where they get like a monster as a sidekick or something, or like they get a really goofy, wacky, weirdo sidekick. You know, Godzilla the animated series has that little robot, which is fine. But I guess I'm thinking like the real Ghostbusters have Slimer as a pet for some reason, and I just feel like from this poster, the way that they have the characters lined up, that dog is for sure going to be like that girl's dog. I also don't know who that girl is. We'll talk a bit about that in the trailer, but she gives me Gia vibes, and I'm not hyped to see them teaming up with a big dog, but whatever. I like the little chameleon guy. He looks great. I think the crab looks awesome. The crab looks very Kong Skull Island to me. The skull crawler's looking amazing. I love the design. This looks to be a bit more of an aged up skull crawler. As you can see, he's got the shards on his shoulders. He's got the spiky back, so that's a bit more of a mature skull crawler, although I wonder if the show is going to acknowledge that or if that'll just be the general design. I don't like the big lizard crocodile man. He's a little too humanoid, as we'll talk about when we go over the trailer. And then all the tentacles in the back and stuff, that's all good stuff. That's all very Skull Island, so that's all good. All right, getting into the teaser itself, I'm just going to scrub through it for this video. First of all, the only dialogue we hear in this trailer is this man saying, you know what they call this place? Skull Island. I think he's probably going to be our villain. He seems to be a bit more of like a redneck guy, like a bit of a fisherman vibes from him. His character design looks very familiar to me. He looks a lot like all the trucker characters in the original Ben 10 cartoon, so he's looking very nostalgic. I think he's probably going to be the villain, and this actually kind of expands upon an idea I discussed a long time ago when King of the Monsters came out. I said I thought it would be interesting if Skull Island got overrun by the public and like big game hunters were going to Skull Island, and you'd had rednecks heading over there the way you kind of had them attacking Kong and King Kong Lives. So I think at least it's interesting to see that they seem to be playing upon similar ideas in this show. Going through the teaser, it definitely is set in an ambiguous time period. I can't tell what we're looking at here. This man's wearing a watch, so it's making me think we're probably leaning into more modern times. This watch, although it's very undetailed, oh my goodness, it's looking very modern. We do see a jukebox in the background, and it's got a bit more of that neon Kong Skull Island vibes to it, which I appreciate. He lays out this map, which is generally very blank and kind of generic with these coordinates that obviously map to Skull Island. And if I had to guess based on canon, although I'm not sure if this show is going to consider canon the way that I am, I hope it does. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope all my fears are unfounded. That would be the best situation. I cannot wait to be proven wrong. But my fear is that this show completely disregards the canon of the MonsterVerse, as Legendary is known to contradict themselves and not really keep a close eye on their extended canon. I feel like the MonsterVerse generally has a problem where Legendary wants to have their cake and eat it too, telling us that the expanded material is canon and does matter, but at the same time, none of the filmmakers or official people producing the main content care at all about the side projects, and they are all irrelevant. Aftershock and Dominion and all that stuff doesn't really matter, to be honest, and that's how I kind of feel about this show. Is this show is, first of all, going to probably ignore the canon of the MonsterVerse the way that that Pacific Rim one did, and also it's going to create issues of its own where this show might get contradicted later on by the movies, or this show will contradict the expanded material. Maybe I'm wrong about all of that. Maybe they really have a tight ship run over there at Legendary, because there's not that much material you have to look into. It's like 5 comic books. It's really not that big of an issue. But if I had to guess based on canon where the show could take place, I would say probably the early to mid 2000s, or maybe even the late 2000s. This show could definitely take place in the late 2000s. The issue you run into with that is Aaron Brooks is still on Skull Island. Aaron Brooks would still be there unless he's dead. I guess his fate is generally ambiguous in the MonsterVerse, but I've always been led to believe he's alive. If he's dead, then this is fine. This show can take place in the late 2000s. If you wanted to stick to continuity strictly, this show would have to take place in the very early 90s before Aaron Brooks and company go back to Skull Island. Aaron and company go to Skull Island in 1995, which means this show could take place as late as 1995 and still be just fine in canon. I'm not expecting that to happen. I'm expecting this show is going to be set whenever it wants to be set. Monarch would be on the island as early as 2012. That's when they moved in officially. Aaron was on the island from 1995 until 2012. I don't know, man. Okay, so this guy's briefing these people on Skull Island. I don't know who these two are. They look to be generally older, and I'm not sure if we see them very often in this trailer. But one thing I really love and wanted to give appreciation to is the fact that this shot very clearly parallels the shot of James Conrad being informed about Skull Island. Of course, in that situation, we were looking from above through the fan blades as they spawn. Great shot. Love that. It's one of my favorite shots in Kong Skull Island. And so I love that they're giving visual nods to Kong Skull Island, and it's showing that they are putting in a level of appreciation and care into this project that I would not have been anticipating. It shows that they are like really playing with the rules of Kong Skull Island's visual language, which I like a lot. So we fade into this helicopter, which looks very generic, and I cannot tell when this would be from. It's not an Osprey, which makes me think we're not in the modern day of the MonsterVerse, because the MonsterVerse is obsessed with Ospreys. So I'm thinking we're probably going to be in the 90s or 2000s based on this helicopter. I think that's the Skull Island storm in the background we're seeing there. I hope this show touches on that, because it is hard for helicopters to get to Skull Island, as we know. So they're flying in, and there's a bunch of characters already here. Again, I don't really see those characters from earlier. I don't see them in this shot, but I do see lots of people carrying what appears to be chug jugs on their back, so Fortnite in the MonsterVerse. And it looks like these guys have already been on the island, and this is supposed to come extract them from it. I'm assuming that they're carrying eggs in their chug jugs. It's like a very Jurassic Park thing to do, is to come harvest eggs and try and leave. I don't know who they work for or anything. I don't think they're with Monarch. This helicopter flies in and gets snatched up by Amphibian. The blue tendrils are alright. I liked the red ones from Kong Skull Island, but this is all cool as well. This is clearly a different species, way bigger. And this one also lives in the ocean rather than on the island, so it's not a mere squid. I like the dynamic, fluid motion of this action. I think it's very stylized and very exciting. As these tentacles tear this helicopter in half here, all this debris goes flying. You see the shot of this woman looking up as the debris flies across her face. And I believe this shot is supposed to be mirroring some of the imagery of Packard when he was looking at his men get torn down. So I'm assuming she's going to be one of the leaders of this crew, and she is watching her only hope of salvation getting off this island get destroyed right in front of her. And again, just another great visual touch from Kong Skull Island. Also good use of shadows here. So it looks like there is some attention and effort put into it, although the art style, in my opinion, is very simplistic and a little more kid-friendly, which I don't love. I would prefer it to be a bit more adult-oriented, but on the whole, it is very simplistic. Not a lot of texturing going on some of the more important things. Lots of background texturing, which I think is interesting, but not like these characters are way less detailed than their backgrounds, and I always think that's a very interesting thing when animators do that. I like the transitions in this trailer with these, like the way that the screen will rip open into the next scene. I think that's an interesting thing they're doing here in the trailer. Here's our guy from the first reveal image. I can tell because he's wearing that red sleeveless shirt. It looks better here than it does in that reveal image, so I appreciate that it at least is looking better in motion. He's also looking much older than he did in that picture, thank the Lord. I did not want to follow children in this show. And he's falling towards this big crab, which is fun. He appears to be on one of the beaches of Skull Island. You can see some water in the background, so it's probably going to be around where Gunpei and Hank crashed. Something like that. There's not too many sandy beaches on Skull Island. I love this creature. Great character design. Very scary. I like the big spikes coming out of his back. He's looking very intense, and I like him a lot. I also like the way that a lot of the jaws in this show kind of split open like the Predator. That's always super cool. Here's where we get into my mixed feelings. I don't know how I feel about the landscapes with the orange on the ground and the red in the background. I guess it's a little like the bamboo forest, which had a different color palette than the rest of Skull Island, but this feels very out of place. But I do love the mountains in the background, and it's got the very Vietnam vibe. So I appreciate that we're getting a visually consistent Skull Island in terms of at least the mountains in the background. But this is going to be, I think, a fake out attack where our characters are trying to make their way through Skull Island, and then this big dog appears, and of course this girl is riding it. I think she's going to be like our Gia of the show. She's going to be our Skull Islander who we follow in this show, and she's riding this big dog. I think it's more of like a lion than a dog, like a mix between a lion and a dog, but I think he's going to be like our mascot for the show, which I don't love. I'm sure they're thinking they're going to be attacked, and then it's going to be her saving them from a threat of some kind. Again, another cool transition with the skull. Here's where we see, I believe this is going to be the red shirt's younger brother. He might be the other person we see in the original reveal image, the one who's also kneeling down in the Kong footprint, and they are being chased by a big crocodile who's just a little too humanoid. The way he's standing, the way he looks like the one crocodile man that Ben 10 teams up with in the season 4 episode where he's a wrestler. It's just a little out of place for the MonsterVerse for me. I don't like the way he's standing here, and from everything I've seen of him, I don't think I'm gonna really like that character as part of the MonsterVerse. Then this girl swings in, she attacks our men. I'm not entirely sure what the scenario is here because she is wearing handcuffs, so maybe she was a prisoner they're escorting. Maybe she was gonna be a prisoner that for some reason they had on their flight with them, and she's escaping here. Or maybe she was a native of Skull Island. I kind of get the vibes with the red, and she's kind of got a bit of a Gia color palette with the white shirt, the brown pants, the red, and then the big socks. And I'm assuming that one of our good guys is gonna put this coat on her because they're like worried she'll be cold or something. I think one of our characters is gonna put the coat on her, and they're probably gonna handcuff her after she attacks with the big dog lion. That's my guess, and it appears she's breaking free here and attacking our guys. And I do think generally our main crew is gonna be up to no good, but the kids, the younger people, like the red shirt boy and his brother, I'm thinking those are going to be good people that team up with this Gia-esque native, and that the adults are going to be the ones that she's getting into conflict with. Also looks like she stabbed a guy in the knee in the background. I don't know how much blood and violence there will be in this show, but there could be quite a bit. I don't know anything about Castlevania, but a lot of you guys have said that is a very violent show. I'm thinking because I'm seeing no blood here, probably not going to be a very bloody show, but at least it shows that they're going with some graphic content. So it does appear to be geared towards maybe young adults. Seems to be the demographic for this show, which is a better demographic than what I was expecting for this show. Again, another fun skull transition, and then we get our big falcon guy, our big phoenix, which is cool. I like his design in the poster. And I like that he snatches this guy up, and it shows that Skull Island still is a very threatening place, and I think that maybe there will be some deaths in this show, which I am looking forward to. And then again, you have the orangey background, so I think this is going to be during that scene when she comes in on the big lion dog, and is probably saving them from this phoenix. Here's a Skull Island font, which again just is not as interesting as the real Skull Island font. I do like the cracks in it though, at least it has some flair. Okay, now we get into the boy. Here's Kong, again in another shot that appears to visually reference Kong Skull Island, this close-up on the angry eyes, and you kind of have some fire and sparks down here in the bottom left corner, which is cool. And he rears up and roars. They do add the 3 chest scars, which is very, very important for the identity of this version of Kong. Look at his eyelashes up there, oh my goodness. And then he does a big roar at us. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not sold on this Kong design. It's black fur, why? Why is it black fur here but brown in the poster? Black fur really throws this whole thing off, and so does the eyelashes. This does not look like the MonsterVerse Kong, not at all. This just looks like King Kong. This could be Kong from Kong King of the Apes, or Kong from any of the other animated Kong stuff. This does not look like the King Kong of the MonsterVerse. There are much better ways to draw that version of Kong that make him look like Kong from that movie. I'm not getting those vibes at all from this iteration of the character. If I didn't know that this was gonna be a MonsterVerse show, and I didn't see those 3 chest scars, I would not be able to tell you who this was. He's roaring at some redhead here who I'm not sure who this is. She is not one of our characters from the poster, nor is she in a lot of the other shots, so I'm not sure who this is. But Kong's roaring at her. I do like the way that there's some camera blur, which gives some intensity to this moment. I think it's a well-animated show, but I'm not sold on the art style. And then coming June 22nd, fairly soon. I guess to sum up my thoughts on how I feel about the new Skull Island anime, the art style is very simplistic, which makes me think they're gearing it towards younger audiences. I'm not sold on the art style yet. I'm not sold on the visual aesthetic of the show yet, but I do appreciate the animation. I think it's very fluid, and really like the cinematography. I think they have great shot choices. They clearly did their homework on Kong Skull Island, as we do have some visual references in there, visual parallels, and I appreciate that, and that makes me happy. But I'm not sold on the show just yet, but I do like what I see. I guess I'm not too hyped about it either, though. I kind of have low expectations and low anticipation for this project, but that means I am going to be more open to enjoying it if it's good. I don't want it to fail at all, so I'm hoping that it's a good show. But yeah, I guess to sum up my thoughts is the Kong design really throws it off for me. I don't love their Kong. I think the show other than that looks to be alright. Some of my fears have been lessened by this teaser, as it doesn't look like the show is going to be a bunch of children, but it does look like it will be gearing towards young adults, not only in terms of viewership, but in terms of the character base. And I don't love the mascot. Maybe he'll be great, who knows. Pharaoh 2 is a character I should have hated and I thought was incredible, so maybe I would like this big mascot as well. But there you go. I guess that's my thoughts, is that the show looks alright. And I'm glad to say it looks alright and not that it looks bad. That makes me happy. And again, it does look like they did their homework, and there is some Kong Skull Island visual parallels, which makes me very happy that they are clearly paying attention to at least that movie, which is the most important thing they can do. If they contradict the expanded material, oh well, it'll happen. If they stick to the MonsterVerse film canon, at least that is intact. Again, I'm assuming these characters are all going to get rescued. I don't think they're going to stay on that island forever. I think they're going to be good to go by the end of the show. Maybe they'll do a couple seasons of it or try and drag it out, but whenever the show ends, they're going to get off the island because they're not in the island in any of the movies. And if that girl is a native girl, she'll probably be like Ato, I believe his name was, from Skull Island, The Birth of Kong. She'll be like an Iwi who talks because she knew Marlowe. And she'll be like our Gia, where she's like the Skull Islander who knows what's up on Skull Island, and she'll team up with them, and that's all good and cool, and she'll be like total badass. But she could also just be like a prisoner who they were escorting who turns out to be the good guy. Maybe she's like a Jack Prescott. She's an environmentalist who snuck onto their crew. I don't know. All right, that'll be it for this one, guys. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. I really appreciate the support. It does help keep this channel running in a big way. Please consider supporting the Patreon using the link in the description below. Through it, you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. And I'll see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man, out.